Ladies and gentlemen, powerful women don't just walk into power, they grow into it. It doesn't show up in the shape of fame, applause, or approval. It shows up in the mirror when she decides that her voice, her value, and her vision are non-negotiable. There are things a powerful woman will never allow to settle in her spirit. There are lies she refuses to cradle. There are phrases she's deleted from her vocabulary, not because she's arrogant, but because she's anointed. She's built different. She's been through too much to live small. She's shed too many tears to doubt her worth. She's survived too many storms to question her strength. A powerful woman silences this lie before it reaches her soul. She knows that her worth is not a matter of opinion, but of identity. She doesn't measure herself by numbers on a scale, approval from people, or achievements on a list. She knows, I was fearfully and wonderfully made. She doesn't need to shrink to fit anyone's comfort. She doesn't chase the seat at the table. She builds her own. Her value is intrinsic, God-breathed, and unshakable. You better believe she is enough, she has enough, and she gives enough. Powerful woman doesn't whisper when she was born to roar. She knows her presence is purposeful. Her voice carries vision. She doesn't apologize for being intelligent, creative, assertive, or bold. She doesn't back down just to keep the peace, because sometimes peace costs too much when it means pretending. The powerful woman has cried enough to recognize the lie. She knows she's been wounded, yes, but she also knows she wasn't born to bleed. She doesn't romanticize suffering. She learns from it. She grows through it, but she never lets it become her identity. Power does not mean isolation. Powerful woman knows that strength is not in carrying every burden. It's in knowing when to reach out. She is not afraid to be supported. She is not ashamed to be covered. She knows that walking with the right people multiplies the mission. A powerful woman knows that timing is sacred. She refuses to compare her timeline with anyone else's highlight reel. She's not on the clock of culture. She's walking by divine appointment. Delay does not mean denial. A powerful woman knows her best days aren't behind her. They are birthing inside her. There is a lie that echoes through generations, whispered in the dark corners of our minds and shouted by the world when we dare to dream too loudly. You are not enough. But let me tell you something. A powerful woman doesn't just reject that lie, she destroys it. She snatches it at the root, tears it down from the walls of her mind, and replaces it with unshakable truth. A powerful woman has learned, sometimes the hard way, that inadequacy is not a fact, but a false narrative designed to keep her small. It is a tool used to make her question her value, mute her voice, and second-guess her strength. But she has grown past that. She has walked through rejection, betrayal, failure, and fear, and still she stands, not because she has never doubted, but because she chose to rise in spite of it. The world will always try to define a woman by what she lacks. Not enough beauty, not enough talent, not enough degrees, not enough softness, not enough strength, not enough love. But a powerful woman no longer seeks approval from those who cannot see the fire inside her. She no longer asks permission to exist. Her self-worth isn't up for debate. She is done negotiating with insecurity. You see, when a powerful woman looks in the mirror, she no longer sees her flaws as failures. She sees them as the fingerprints of growth. Her stretch marks are signs of expansion. Her wrinkles are rivers of wisdom. Her scars are reminders that she didn't just survive, she overcame. She is no longer afraid of imperfection. She knows that her authenticity is what makes her unforgettable. In a world that thrives on comparison, she has chosen confidence over competition. She doesn't measure herself against the curated highlight reels of other people's lives. She doesn't need to mimic someone else's journey. She has learned to walk boldly in her own lane, even if no one else understands it. Her success is not defined by followers, finances, fame. It is defined by freedom. Freedom to be fully herself, even when the world prefers her filtered. There was a time she may have bowed to doubt. There was a time when she would let fear make her decisions. When she would have stayed silent to keep the peace. When she would have overextended herself just to feel worthy. But not anymore. Not after she discovered who she really is. Not after she realized that the truth of her identity was never attached to her productivity, her pain, or her past. I am not what I lost. I am not what I didn't receive. I am not the worst thing I've been through. I am not my broken moments. I am not the opinions of people who never bothered to know my heart. She knows that being enough was never about being perfect. It was about being present, being purposeful, being real. She knows that power is not in pretending. It's in showing up as her full self, flaws and all, without apology. She doesn't shrink so others can feel tall. She doesn't hide her intelligence to avoid being called intimidating. She doesn't silence her ambition so others don't feel insecure. She has stopped dimming her light to make others comfortable in their darkness. She is not responsible for their perception. She is responsible for her alignment. She pours into herself without guilt. She sets boundaries with boldness. She speaks truth with grace, and she has learned to be her own biggest advocate, not out of arrogance, but out of survival. Because for too long, she waited for someone to affirm her, to pick her, to celebrate her. Now, she picks herself. She claps for herself. She loves herself wholly and completely. Inadequacy no longer has a seat at her table. It no longer gets to narrate her story. She has evicted it from her mind, removed it from her mouth, and replaced it with declaration. She speaks life over herself. She speaks strength into her day. She doesn't wait for others to validate her destiny. She walks in it because she believes in it. Powerful woman is dangerous to the lie of inadequacy because she shows others what's possible when you stop believing you are broken. She gives permission for other women to rise, not through perfection, but through authenticity. Her presence becomes a prophecy, her life a testimony. She is no longer trying to prove her worth. She embodies it. She knows she was created with intentionality, wired with divine purpose, assigned gifts that no one else can carry like she does. She is not a copy. She is an original blueprint. Her existence is not random. Her talents are not small. Her voice is not irrelevant. And when the lie tries to creep back in, because yes, it will, she recognizes it immediately. She calls it out. She speaks truth louder. She surrounds herself with people who see her, not just need her. She doesn't entertain friendships or environments that thrive on making her feel less than. She understands that peace is her birthright. She will not compromise her joy just to keep the wrong people comfortable. Let the world say what it wants. Let the critics have their opinions. Let the doubts rise like waves. A powerful woman is not moved. She is anchored in truth. And the truth is she is enough. She has always been enough. Even on the day she felt forgotten, overlooked, or dismissed, she was still enough. She just had to remember. Powerful women do not apologize for their presence. They walk in a room with the full weight of who they are, unapologetically, confidently, and completely. They don't shrink. They don't whisper. They don't contort themselves into smaller versions just to soothe the discomfort of others. They take up space boldly. To take up space as a woman in a world that constantly demands your silence is not arrogance. It's courage. It's resistance. It's redemption, because for centuries, society has told women to sit down, be quiet, smile more, speak less, don't be too loud, don't be too smart, don't be too ambitious. But the powerful woman no longer conforms to those tired expectations. She refuses to play small just to be palatable. Taking up space isn't just about physical presence. It's spiritual, emotional, mental, and creative presence. It means occupying the fullness of your identity. It means standing firmly in your truth. It means honoring your voice, your worth, your story, God-given gifts, even when no one claps for you, even when the world prefers you quiet and contained. The powerful woman has learned, sometimes painfully, that playing small doesn't protect you, it robs you. It robs you of the opportunity to walk in your divine assignment. It robs others of the inspiration that only your life could offer. It robs your daughters, sisters, friends, and future generations of the blueprint you were called to build. She now understands that taking up space is not selfish, it's essential. She speaks with conviction, not because she needs to prove herself, but because she knows her voice carries value. Every time she uses her voice, she shatters ceilings, disrupts silence, and awakens the sleeping parts of other women who've been waiting for permission to rise. She doesn't speak to impress, she speaks to impact. She wears what she wants, not what makes others comfortable. She leads how she's led to, not how tradition dictates. She doesn't dim her light because someone else hasn't learned how to shine. Her glow is not arrogance. It's the reflection of years spent hiding, healing, and finally rising. When she steps into leadership, she does it without guilt. She knows she's not too much. She's just fully present, and her presence has weight. Her ideas have power. Her perspective is shaped by wisdom, wounds, and wonder. She no longer dismisses her intuition or her intelligence to fit into boxes she was never meant to inhabit. She doesn't shrink for systems that were never built with her in mind. Her boundaries are firm because her time is sacred. She knows that every moment she invests in herself, in her healing, in her purpose, is a deposit into legacy. She no longer explains herself to people who are committed to misunderstanding her. Her presence alone is enough explanation. She takes up space in relationships. She doesn't water herself down for romantic validation. She doesn't beg to be loved correctly. She understands that any love that requires her silence is not love, it's manipulation. She is not afraid to walk away from tables where her fullness is unwelcome. She knows her peace is the proof of alignment. Emotionally, she's not afraid to feel deeply. She no longer hides her heart behind armor. She doesn't mistake vulnerability for weakness. In fact, she understands that to feel, to express, to cry, to love, to heal, these are the bravest acts of all. She doesn't suppress her emotions to appear strong. She embraces them, moves through them, and lets them teach her. That is where her real strength lies. Creatively, she doesn't wait to be discovered. She discovers herself. She builds platforms, pens books, launches businesses, starts movements. She doesn't wait for a green light. She is the green light. She doesn't wait for applause. She creates from place of authenticity, not approval. Every idea, every project, every bold step is another way she declares, I am here. I matter. I will not be erased. In community, she lifts other women instead of competing with them. She knows there is room for all of us. She doesn't take up space to overshadow others. She takes up space to make space. She becomes the open door she once needed. She advocates. She empowers. She builds tables and then pulls up chairs for others. Even in moments of fear, she still shows up. Boldness doesn't mean the absence of fear. It means moving forward in spite of it. She has learned that the fear of being too much often comes from those who are not ready to rise with her, and that's okay. She walks anyway. She speaks anyway. She shows up anyway. Taking up space boldly means she stops apologizing for what makes her unique. Her heritage, her body, her skin tone, her accent, her past, all of it is part of her brilliance. She has shed the shame that once held her hostage. She no longer needs to be palatable. She chooses to be powerful. There will always be voices, internal and external, that try to convince her she's asking for too much, that she's aiming too high, that she should tone it down. But she has come too far, fought through too much, and healed from too many battles to live a muted life. She has made peace with her reflection and reclaimed her voice. She knows she was called to light up rooms, to speak up in boardrooms, to bring healing in broken places, to lead with fire and compassion. She was not created to be hidden. She was created to be seen, to be heard, and to be felt. There comes a point in every powerful woman's journey when she realizes the weight she's been carrying isn't hers to bear. It's the weight of shame, regret, guilt, and most dangerously, self-blame. For too long, she's internalized pain that was never her fault. She's whispered accusations to herself in the quiet of her mind, pointing fingers inward for things that broke her, bruised her, or abandoned her. Season ends when she decides no more, blaming herself for every wrong turn, every broken relationship, every unmet expectation, every missed opportunity. Every trauma is like trying to heal a wound by reopening it over and over again. It's not healing. It's self-inflicted bondage. She lays down the narrative that everything was her fault. She stops replaying moments where she thinks, if only I had said this, if only I had done that, maybe then they would have stayed. Maybe then I wouldn't have been hurt. Maybe then things would have been different. Or she refuses to carry the burden of other people's brokenness. She refuses to internalize the abuse, betrayal, abandonment she experienced as a reflection of her value. She recognizes that someone else's failure to love her does not make her unlovable. She understands that people hurt others from their own unhealed places, and she was never responsible for fixing what she didn't break. This doesn't mean she ignores her role in her own journey. She takes responsibility, but not blame. There's a difference. Responsibility says, I acknowledge where I need to grow. Blame says, it's all my fault and I deserve to hurt. The former is empowering. The latter is crippling. Powerful woman chooses power. She breaks the cycle of self-blame by confronting her inner critic. That voice that says, you should have known better. She speaks back and says, I did the best I could with what I knew then. She no longer lets guilt take up permanent residence in her soul. She learns how to forgive herself, not because she didn't make mistakes, but because she no longer wants to be a prisoner of them. She breaks the cycle when she realizes how much it has stolen from her, how many dreams she's delayed, how many opportunities she's pushed away, how many connections she's sabotaged because she secretly believed she didn't deserve good things. But no more. She's no longer shrinking from blessings out of unworthiness. She's stepping into them with open hands. She also stops apologizing for things she was never responsible for. She stops saying sorry for being emotional, for needing support, for being sensitive, for trusting the wrong people, for loving too deeply. These are not weaknesses. They are reflections of her heart, and she no longer blames herself for having one. A powerful woman reclaims her narrative. She stops defining herself by her worst days. She learns to separate what happened to her from who she is. She doesn't confuse trauma with identity. She doesn't confuse her past with her destiny. She writes new stories with boldness, care enough, and she no longer edits herself out of the plot. Breaking the cycle of self-blame also means she starts treating herself with compassion enough. She becomes the voice she needed when she was hurting. She comforts the girl inside her who once felt lost, ashamed, or abandoned. She no longer abandons herself in her own healing journey. She shows up for herself with kindness, with patience, with grace. Care enough when others try to put blame back on her, when they say, well, maybe if you had done this. She no longer receives it. She doesn't argue with people who refuse to own their part. She simply disengages from the toxic patterns. She chooses peace over guilt and growth over shame. And care enough. This kind of healing is not always loud. Sometimes it's a quiet revolution. It's the moment she chooses to stop crying over closed doors. It's the breath she exhales when she lets go of the need to rewrite the past. It's the courage she finds to say, that was not my fault. That pain was not my purpose. But I'm still here. I am care enough. And I am not broke becoming. She knows that no one else can free her from self-blame. She has to choose freedom for herself. And when she does and care enough, everything changes. Her confidence rises. Her relationships shift. Her inner dialogue becomes sacred. She stops seeing herself as damaged and starts seeing herself as designed for strength, for purpose, for impact. Self-blame had its season, but that season is over. She is no longer repeating the cycle. She is rising into her power and care enough. And every time she looks in the mirror and chooses love instead of judgment, truth instead of torment, healing instead of hurt, she declares that the cycle is broken. There is a strength that doesn't shout, it doesn't dominate. It doesn't isolate. It connects. And powerful women know true strength is not proven by how alone you can stand, but by how deeply you can connect, love enough, and lean when it matters most. Powerful women embrace connection, not as a weakness, but as a sacred gift, a bridge to healing, growth, and purpose. Care enough. Too many women have been taught that independence means isolation, that needing others makes you fragile, that asking for help is a sign of deficiency. The powerful woman has unlearned those lies. She has chosen to believe something deeper. I don't lose power when I connect. I multiply it. Care enough. She no longer hides behind the mask of self-sufficiency. For too long, she wore the armor of, I'm fine. Even when her soul was tired, her heart was heavy. Care enough, and her spirit needed rest. She smiled when she wanted to cry. She showed up for everyone while showing up for herself last. But not anymore. She's done pretending strength is silence. Now, she recognizes the beauty in vulnerability. She understands that letting someone in isn't a sign of being broken. It's a sign of being whole enough to share. It's a sign that she trusts her value and believes she is worthy of being seen, not just in her power, but in her process. The powerful woman reaches out. She builds relationships that are rooted in truth, not performance. She surrounds herself with people who speak life into her, not competition. She doesn't just collect followers or fans, she cultivates real community. The kind of connection that doesn't demand perfection but celebrates authenticity. She has come to realize that she was never meant to do life alone. Even when society told her, you have to be everything for everyone, she now knows that even the strongest woman needs a safe space to fall apart and be reminded that she is held. Strength without connection becomes a cage. But when you connect, truly connect, you find freedom in shared humanity. Connection requires courage. It asks you to let someone see behind the polished version of your life. But the powerful woman isn't afraid of being seen anymore. She doesn't hide her past, cannot her fears. She doesn't hide her dreams. She opens up, not recklessly, but intentionally. She discerns who is safe and invites them into the sacred space of her truth. When she sits in a room with another woman who has also been through fire, there's no need for competition. There's no comparison, just no mask, rawness, resonant, a quiet knowing that says, me too, I've been there, and I see you. Powerful women lift other women. Not because they have to, because they want to. Care enough. They don't see another woman's glow as a threat to their shine. They celebrate each other. They sharpen each other. They stand in the gap for one another and care enough. And when one rises, she reaches back to pull the next one up. There is nothing more powerful than women who refuse to compete and choose to connect. Care enough. There's nothing more healing than being truly known and still loved. That kind of connection is sacred. It's a mirror, a covering, a lifeline. Powerful woman also embraces connection with herself. She no longer runs from her own soul. She listens to her intuition. She honors her emotions. She takes time to sit with her spirit and ask, what do I need today? How am I really doing? She no longer abandons herself for the sake of productivity or performance. She connects inward first. Because the deeper she connects with herself, the more meaningful her external connections become. She also reconnects with her roots, with her heritage, her culture, her family, her spiritual foundation. She finds power in remembering who she came from and what she carries. She draws strength from her lineage, from the prayers of her grandmothers, from the wisdom of the women who walk before her. She is not alone. She stands on the shoulders of warriors. And perhaps most importantly, the powerful woman embraces connection with her source. She knows that without spiritual alignment, everything else loses meaning. She makes time to pause, care enough to pray, to listen, to be still. Her strength doesn't just come from ambition. It comes from anchoring, from knowing that she is divinely guided, care enough, divinely covered, divinely chosen. Her connection to God fuels her confidence, humbles her heart, and gives her peace that surpasses understanding. In seasons of transition, connection becomes even more vital. The powerful woman doesn't isolate herself in times of pain. She doesn't push people away when she's grieving or confused. She draws near. She allows herself to be supported. She lets others remind her of the truth when her own voice trembles. She's not afraid to say, I need help. I need prayer, care enough, need presence. That is not weakness, it's wisdom. Connection also gives her accountability. It reminds her of her standards, her calling, her boundaries. Care enough. It keeps her from drifting into old patterns. It challenges her to grow, to be honest, to stay aligned. The right connections won't let her settle for mediocrity. They call her higher. She guards her connections with discernment. Not everyone gets access. And care enough, not every voice belongs in her space. She is selective with her energy, not because she's better than anyone, but because she's protecting her peace. She understands that some connections cost too much. And if the relationship requires her to betray herself, it's not a connection. It's a cage. So she connects deeply, but wisely. She doesn't confuse proximity with intimacy. She values quality over quantity. She invests in people who pour back into her. And she honors the sacred responsibility of doing the same in return. To embrace connection is to live fully. It is to love, to risk, to trust, to forgive, to be vulnerable, to be real. The powerful woman has chosen this way of life, not because it's easy, but because it's worth it. She is no longer the lone warrior. She is the empowered daughter, sister, leader, lover, friend. She is the woman who believes that strength is not found in standing alone, but in standing together. Powerful women walk differently. and care enough. They move through life with a stillness in their spirit and a fire in their soul. Their pace isn't frantic. Their steps aren't desperate. And their energy isn't anxious. Why? Because they know something many haven't yet discovered. They walk in divine timing. Care enough. They are not in a race against the clock. They're not chasing validation, running from insecurity, or trying to catch up to someone else's life. Enough. They've released the pressure of comparison and embraced the truth that their journey, they're calling it the breakthrough, and care enough. Their healing will not come a second too early or a moment too late. This kind of peace doesn't happen overnight. Many of them once lived on a timeline handed to them by culture, family, and fear. Be married by this age, have kids by this age. Start your career by then. Care enough. Own a home by now. Be somebody, do something, get somewhere fast. And for a while, they chased it. They ran themselves into emotional exhaustion trying to meet expectations that weren't even theirs. But eventually, the powerful woman stops running toward what she was never meant to chase. She silences the noise. She gets still. She reflects. And in that silence, she hears something deeper than pressure. She hears purpose. She begins to understand that divine timing isn't a delay, it's about design. Every detour, every pause, every wait, every silence, it's not wasted, it's working. She realizes that her life is not a mistake in motion, it's a masterpiece in process. She lets go of the need to be first, the need to arrive, the need to have it all together before the world gives her permission to feel successful. Instead, she leans into alignment. She walks according to vision, care enough, not urgency. She no longer compares her behind the scenes to someone else's highlight reel, because while others may rush, she now understands something sacred. What is hers cannot be stolen, cannot be forced, and cannot be missed. When she walks in divine timing, she becomes deeply grounded. Disappointment no longer breaks her because she trusts that every closed door is a form of protection. She doesn't beg for what walks away. She doesn't chase what slips through her hands. She simply releases it, knowing that whatever leaves was not assigned to her future. Care enough, she has learned how to grieve and let go without losing herself in the process. To walk in divine timing is to know that your story is not on hold, it's unfolding. There are moments being woven together behind the scenes. Care enough. People you haven't met yet, doors you haven't seen yet, breakthroughs you haven't imagined yet. Care enough. And just because it hasn't happened doesn't mean it never will. It means it's being prepared for the right moment. And she trusts that moment. I often care enough. Powerful women have learned to honor the waiting season. The waiting room is no longer a place of frustration, but a place of transformation. In the wait, she finds wisdom. In the silence, she learns discernment. In the stillness, she strengthens her spirit. She knows that she is not idle. She is being equipped. And when the time comes, she won't have to force it. What's for her will align so clearly. It will carry the fingerprints of something greater than coincidence. It will carry divine timing. Even in the midst of pain, she doesn't question the pace. She's had to endure seasons that didn't make sense. Yes, she's cried over delays she didn't understand. But when the pieces finally fell into place, she realized that the wait wasn't punishment, it was preparation. The pain didn't ruin her, it revealed her. Every broken moment led her closer to clarity, care enough, to healing, to identity. This kind of trust changes how she lives. She no longer makes fear-based decisions. She no longer forces relationship out of loneliness. She no longer accepts offers that violate her values just to feel busy or important. She doesn't entertain shortcuts that compromise her integrity. Care enough, because she knows if it's not divine, it's not for me. She doesn't feel behind anymore, because she's not behind. She's becoming, and becoming takes time. She embraces every chapter without skipping ahead. She no longer measures success by speed, but by depth. Is she growing? Is she aligned? Is she at peace? Those are the questions that guide her now. Not how fast, but how true. She celebrates others without resenting her own season. She can clap for someone else's breakthrough because she trusts hers is coming. She doesn't compete. She doesn't compare. She knows there is room for every woman to rise. Someone else's blessing is not her burden. Their timing is not her timeline. When you walk in divine timing, care enough. You stop panicking over the unknown. You stop forcing answers and start walking in faith. And care enough. You trust that the same grace that carried you this far will carry you forward. You recognize that every chapter had a purpose. Even the ones that hurt. Care enough. Even the ones that were silent. Even the ones that seemed like nothing was happening. You were being refined. You were being strengthened. You were being pruned for purpose. You stopped striving and trusting. You stopped forcing and start flowing. You let go of fear. And you rest in faith. Care enough. You believe that what's for you is already on the way, and you don't have to rush what's already been written. So the powerful woman moves forward, not in a hurry, but in harmony. With every step, she aligns with the timing that created her, that carries her, and that calls her into everything she was born to do.